on some of these specific positions. I just want to ask you for traits that you look for. Edge.
Edge, you got to be explosive. You got to be athletic. You got to be explosive. You got to be able to bend and get off the ball. And, those are the type of athletes that win, and they win consistently in this league. So that's what we'll be focusing on.
So it sounds like Dan Morgan has a clear vision of what they're looking for to add to the edge group in the draft coming up. And they've been conducting their 30 visits pre-draft for players, and it's been heavily slanted towards the edge rusher group, whether it's first rounders, second rounders, day 3 targets, just an assortment and a cornucopia of different guys have been brought in to get a closer look at, which makes sense because the Carolina Panthers spent the most of their offseason spending money to upgrade the interior, which makes sense because they really got pushed around. One of the worst rush defenses in the league last year, and a lot of it had to do with up front. Obviously, Derrick Brown was injured, so it weakened that, but as a whole, even in that first game where Derrick Brown was playing, they virtually got pushed around every which way and just gave up a ton of yards all season. So it's hard though. In the interior, you can find guys in free agency, but difference makers at the edge group that can get after the passer don't typically hit the market. There's certain positions like receivers, like corners pretty much, and then definitely pass rushers that don't hit the free agent market. They just don't. They either get traded or they get extended. You have to draft these guys to find them, and so it makes sense that they focus their effort spending money on the interior but looking at the draft. And this class may not be as top heavy as some of the others in history, but definitely has an assortment of skill sets and depth at the position that the Panthers can pick from. In my eyes, there's really no excuse not to leave this draft with something, you know what I'm saying? And I wouldn't be shocked to see them even double dip to really get this thing kicked off with a young group of edge rushers to develop and build up over time. But again, they met with a ton of edge rushers, so I want to take a look at some of these guys, their traits, their numbers. We heard what Dan Morgan said, what he was looking for, just to try to align that and look at some of the guys that they've met with, see if I can find patterns and thresholds and minimum requirements that they're looking for, just to figure out what exactly these guys are for. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, every team has their desired player of what they expect to be able to execute what they need to do in their system, whether it's height, weight, speed, a certain type of ball skills, flexibility, strength. It doesn't matter. Every team has their certain thresholds and their ideal prospects. So I'm going to look into the nitty gritty and try to figure out if I can find any patterns, point out the guys that they've already talked to and any other guys that they may consider that we haven't had reported interest with. So if you're into the draft type of math and jargon like this, you want to geek out over the draft like I do, this is the video for you. But if you're new to the channel, make sure you are subscribed. You're not going to get any more in-depth, you're not going to get better in-depth analysis of the Carolina Panthers anywhere out there than here on this channel. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. So please go ahead and subscribe with bell notifications. I'm doing more videos like this for other position groups, but today is about the edge group. And so if you're ready for this, let's go ahead and lock in. So if you're new to the channel, if you're not new, you remember before free agency, I put a thorough breakdown with numbers and support about each position group on the Panthers team and why they needed that. And this is just to show you a refresher that and how it lines up with what Dan Morgan said at the combine. I said this before free agency, of course. And so they kind of thinking what I'm thinking. They seeing the same stuff. I just want to let you know that I've been doing my homework, and what I'm seeing is aligned with what Dan Morgan and them are seeing. The Panthers had the 5th lowest time to pressure in the NFL last year, meaning the time it took for them to get a pressure was the 5th slowest in the NFL. Another stat, 60% of the rushing yards surrendered came from outside the tackle. So what I thought they needed was quick winners, somebody that can lower that time to pressure. I wanted somebody to have be able to have an agility to be able to change direction when we do crosses and loops and stunts up front. I wanted somebody to be able to have power as well at times, to be able to collapse the pocket, because sometimes you want to get full-fledged at those quarterbacks, but those scrambling guys, like we saw in the Super Bowl, it's better to just collapse the pocket around them, make them uncomfortable, not give them room to really scramble out. So I thought we needed that as well. And of course, strength and length to set the edge, because all those rushing yards we gave up outside of the tackles is because we can't set the edge. And what happens there, you need to be strong enough so you don't get pushed around, but you also need to have the arm length to be able to extend, lock them out, and control the blockers when they come towards you, and be able to shed as well, because if they get their pads on you and your arms are too short to get them off, it's like boxing. Having that reach, you're going to have that advantage with the longer arm length you have. So arm length is something that's very important. So I just wanted to refresh with you guys on what's going on there and what I saw just from watching the tape of the Panthers defense all season. So let's look at some of the traits that the Panthers have really targeted and the patterns that I've saw, because they have 30 visits scheduled. And what are the common traits? Arm length is number one, and I've seen at least 33-inch arms. Now, 33 is just the bare minimum of what I saw from a lot of these guys, but that's kind of the common threshold. You see all the controversy on offensive line with Will Campbell playing tackle. They want tackles to have that 33-inch arm because they know edge rushers have those type of 33-inch arms as well. And I talked about being a boxer comparison. I talked about the running game and setting the edge and be able to control guys by getting hands on. That's what it's about. It's about having that arm length. So it matters, guys, whether you like it or not. It's a deal breaker for some teams for you to not be able to meet that minimum threshold of 33 inches. From weight, the Panthers have targeted guys between 245 pounds to 265 pounds. That's just the range they've had, and that's just kind of the common, because playing that stand-up edge rusher in a 3-4, you're going to have to drop back into coverage at times, but you also need to be agile and nimble enough to be able to get after the quarterback in a hurry, coming out of that 2-point stance and be able to stand up. And so you need to have some bulk to be able to stand up to some of the 300-pound offensive linemen, but you don't want to be too heavy because we're going to be built for speed and attacking and also potentially playing in space at times when you drop into coverage. And of course, explosiveness, particularly in the lower body, a common thread that I've seen for guys that have actually done the test, because not everybody does this, all the full testing for the combine, is a 10-foot broad jump, which is of course 120 inches. This is a very, very good score for that test. And guys, it's one of the key components of lower body explosion, because you're from a static start. It's all about the hips and the trunk and the cheeks, all that stuff, the paws, whatever you want to say. It's about that area and having some junk in the trunk. You know what I'm saying? That's when you can know that you can stand your ground and be able to sit there and be strong enough to hold up and not get pushed around. That's going to put you at 120 inches or 10-foot broad. It's going to put you in the 65 to 70 percentile of edge rusher. So you're in a pretty good company in that standpoint. So I think that's a key of why they did this. It's also going to help with your get off and getting off the ball and stuff when you have that explosiveness as well. But let's look at this. Shout out to my guy, Edgar Samingo, on Twitter. Follow him at Panthers Analyst. He does a good job of tracking a lot of this stuff. He's one of those guys that likes to geek out over the draft just like me as well. Kind of been working with him on some things. So shout out to Edgar there. The measurables for the Panthers outside linebackers who they signed or had interest in last year. So Jadeveon Clowney is 6'5", 266 with 35.5-inch arms. He checks all three of these boxes that I pretty much had on here, mainly the arm length and the weight. Arm length is probably the biggest one. I've kind of ranked these in order for the most part, but he checks that box. DJ Wanham, 6'5", 258, 35.1/8-inch arms, checks those boxes. That's why we brought him in. DJ Johnson, he's a traits guy, but he was 6'4", 260, and 33.25-inch arms. So he barely scraped that arm length thing, but you can see what's happening. And Derek Hall was a guy that they were interested in during the draft process. We didn't draft him, of course, but it was reported that we had interest in him as well. He was 6'2", 254 with 34.5-inch arms. Another guy we looked at that we brought in for a visit last year was Marshawn Nealon. Marshawn Nealon went to the Cowboys, but he was 6'3", 267, 34.5-inch arms, and he was just under that threshold for that 10-inch broad jump. He had 119 inches. We wanted to get to that 120 to be at 10 foot, but it just lets you know these are the guys that they're targeting. What patterns can we figure out? And this is what they want. Obviously, they feel like these boxes are what are required to be successful in their system and do the things that they need them to do. Whether right, wrong, or indifferent, there's a method to the madness for teams. Every team does it. The Packers, they have their certain thresholds for wide receivers as well that you can almost take it to the bank. They've been doing it for a while, but with Dan Morgan, he hasn't been on the job that long. So this is why I'm doing this exercise, to try to figure out what type of guys they like. That way, moving forward, I know who fits their system, who doesn't fit their system, what style of play they like, and that way, if I have a favorite, they may like. Who knows? They may like who's an edge rusher that I like. I don't even know. They may like a James Pierce Jr. But if a James Pierce Jr. doesn't have the arm length, or he doesn't have the explosiveness, or doesn't have the weight, he may not be a target. He may be my guy, but I can't be too mad at the Panthers for not looking at these guys. And let me be clear. Let me be 100% clear on this. Of course, there are mitigating factors. We know that they're interested in Jalen Walker. That's why I think that Jalen Walker will not be a full-time edge for the Panthers. He'll be a hybrid similar to Frankie Louvu. If he was going to be a full-time edge, him not meeting these measurables, it would be a deal breaker in my opinion. But the fact that he has that versatility plus the leadership, he may not check every box, but the mitigating factor for him is he has versatility. He can blitz from inside. He can go outside. He can play some linebacker as well. Look, every guy may not fit these check boxes, but of course, if they can overcompensate for whatever reason, okay, hey, it makes sense for them to say, okay, we'll go outside our comfort zone and add this guy because one, we know he can play, and two, he's a baller, and the stuff that the drawbacks. Let's say he has shorter arms, but it doesn't show up on tape. It doesn't seem that the lack of arm length is a problem for him on tape. It's like, okay, fine. Let's not be robotic in it if we don't see the issue pop up on tape. So that's what you guys need to kind of understand. Every team does this. So everybody pissed off about them just gambling on traits. It makes it easy, just like a job application at your job. If I put out a position and I want somebody to be an accountant on my team, I'm going to have minimum thresholds. Yes, somebody coming out of college may be smarter than somebody with 5 years of experience, but if I know I want 5 years of experience working on this specific software, if you don't have that, I'm going to go ahead and sort it out because I may get a million applications on Indeed. People apply for jobs they're not qualified for all the time. But the way to sift through all the noise and all the madness and all the volume of prospects from the draft process, but like job applications, is to have minimum thresholds. Of course, like I said, there's mitigating factors, but if there's minimum thresholds there, it helps you save time for one, but also know that, hey, more than likely, this guy has a chance to do what we need him to do. Drafting is not a science. It's not an art, but you can try to make it a method, or you can have your own methods as much as possible to hopefully make it as smooth of transition as it needs to be. So let's look at the spreadsheet of all the prospects that are in the draft pool at the edge position, that is. So this is a big board for all the edge rushers. And what I've done here is every guy that has a round grade right here has been known to have an established meeting with the Panthers, whether it's at their pro day, whether it's a top 30 visit, whether it was the combine or something like that. These guys were reported to meet with the Panthers. Now, visits aren't everything and not for every team, but for the Panthers, it means a lot. It would be dumb to not put weight. It's not everything, but it's definitely not nothing. If you look at Panthers history, and shout out to Edgar again for this, he put this out there: 8 of the 9 Panthers draft picks, and these are, I think, are a good barometer just to see. 8 of the 9 had a 30 or a local visit on this list. You got Bryce Young, Mingo, DJ Johnson, Chandler Zavala, Xavier Legette, Brooks, Wallace, Jatavian Sanders, all came in for visits. It means something. And obviously, Dave Canales has talked about wanting good people, wanting to hear guys' football story. So clearly, meeting, talking with them, getting to put their hands and eyes on them and have conversation with them as much as possible means a lot to this team. It may not mean as much to some guys because they want to keep it under wraps, but the Panthers, they want to know who they're going to be investing in for the next 4 years. They want to get to know them as people. That's just their method. Do I agree with it 100%? I don't think it's a problem. I think it's fun because it lets me know when they're interested and I can do exercises like this. But I know it gets some people pissed off because it feels like this shows their hand. But if they feel like they need to do this to be comfortable with these guys, so be it. And if it's going to be effective going forward, we'll see if it is. I don't really care. All right, so let's look at this big board. Shout out to Professor. Oh, he put this together himself, man. This is it's a crazy spreadsheet, man. Like the amount of volume and work that he put in here is a lot. So, okay, I put in every guy that we met with. I put their round in. I've kind of ranked them quasi by the consensus just to put them in a particular order. And you can see there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys, and I think 10 out of these 11 they actually had for a 30 visit. Fadil Diggs was just a pro day meeting. But as you can see, let's look at what these guys have in common. If, again, 33-inch arms. Let's start with the weight. 245 to 265. Look at this guy. 248, 260, 267. The lowest guys on here are Princely Umamiela, who was 244, and Q Robinson from Alabama for 243. Everybody else is in that range. Jordan Burke is a little bit heavier outside of that range. Some people think he could end up playing inside. He came for a local visit because he formerly went to the University of South Carolina. I think he's from South Carolina anyway, but he was a guy that's kind of a little bit of an outlier on this list. But look, everybody else is in that 264 to 245 range. So this is the pattern that I deducted for this information from. I'm not just making stuff up. We're looking at patterns. Let's go to arms. 34 and 3/8, 34 and 1/8, 33 and 7/8. Look, none of these are below. The only guy that's below that is 31 and 78 here with Ashton Gillett. Let me tell you about Ashton Gillett. This dude has one of the most interesting builds in my opinion. He's 6'2", 264. He's like a sawed-off guy. He sets the edge stronger than anybody I've seen. One of the guys in his class that has just super, super strong at the point of attack. Can play inside, can play outside. I wasn't sure if he had the speed and stuff to get out there, but he's very, very productive in his career. And he offers some versatility, some level of intensity. He can play every down, man, and just hustles there. So those are the type of guys that have those mitigating factors that, hey, they may not have ideal arm length, but does it show up on tape all the time? No, he's strong as an ox. Can he get outdone and outreach sometimes? Yeah, at times, but he's so strong. He's so good at being able to shed blocks at the point of attack and set the edge. He probably has the tape to make you feel good about, hey, his arm length isn't a huge problem on tape because look, he's almost 2 inches below the threshold of what they want in the edge rusher. So he's one of those examples of a guy having mitigating factors. Okay, let's keep it pushing. Moving over here to vertical and broad jump. Vertical is a good sign of lower body explosive ability as well. A lot of these guys, mid-30s, everybody doesn't do this, but mid-30s is pretty solid. Look at this broad jump though. Almost everybody is over 10 feet. Almost everybody is over 10 feet. This doesn't have pro day numbers. It's only combine numbers. But look, Donovan Izaraku is the only guy that's just below that. He's only an inch below, but his vertical is very, very well. And so, of course, he has bend as well. We talked about this is the three cone is a good way to measure bend. A 6'9", anything sub 7 in the three cone shows you have elite bend because you have to run a L. And when you L, you kind of turn and run almost like a track runner, turning that corner, which is almost the equivalent to turning the corner as a pass rusher. So again, a mitigating factor in that standpoint, especially when you have 34-inch arms. Obviously, it can overcome some of those things. But of course, look, everybody almost has a 10-foot broad jump. Of course, we got Shamar Stewart with almost 11, which is crazy to see. But these are the type of guys that they're looking for and the traits they're looking for. I have the grades and stuff over here. You can see everybody's pretty solid overall except Oluwafu Oladejo. He's a guy that plays some linebacker, off-ball linebacker, so his a little bit skewed pass rush grade, but everybody's also pretty solid pass rushers. The win rate is okay there as well, but these are the type of guys that they're looking for. But let's look at some other guys down here on this list that might make it. I'm going to put a filter on arm length because that seems to be the biggest one, and I'm going to remove everybody that's below 33. Let's add weight. Take off some of these heavier guys. I'll leave 271 since it's only 5 pounds. And let's take off some of these other heavier guys. And we'll leave 242 because it's only 3 pounds shy. Okay. And so the broad jump, I'll leave that out. We'll just look at them on a case-by-case basis. Let's look at some names. Nick Scorton. Nick Scorton is a guy I think they could be interested in as well. He has that 33-inch arm length. He plays standing up as well for Texas A&M. Obviously, similar system to Shamar Stewart. Not the athlete that Shamar Stewart is, but of course, he checks the box for arm length. He checks the box for the weight as well. Didn't really get any other measurements on him, but he has an 80 pass rush grade, 36 total pressures. I think he's a guy that can fit it. JT Tuilemalua from Ohio State. Now, he checks all the threshold boxes with 265 and 334, but I don't think he's an explosive enough athlete watching him on tape to play into a 3-4, much more of a 4-3 defensive end in my opinion. But some guys may see him being able to stand up, but I think he's better with his hand in the dirt, being able to get after the passer that way. Landon Jackson is a guy I'm very surprised they have not met with. His inside-out versatility, and if you've been watching my channel, I was a big Darius Robinson fan. I'm a sucker for inside-out versatility from an edge rusher. He's able to stand up. Had a great Senior Bowl game. The practice week wasn't that great, but he had a great game. He's 6'6", 264, 33 and a quarter inch arms, and End up checking that box. Look at 40-inch vert and a 10.9 broad jump. So, of course, he checks the lower body explosiveness value. This guy is like a freaking pterodactyl out there. It looks like it because his wingspan is ridiculous. Even though he doesn't have the longest arms, like look, Shamar Stewart has 34 and an 1/8 inch arms, but he has 84 wingspan. Landon Jackson, he's just shy of that, and he has 33 and a quarter inch arms. So he just has broad shoulders. When you have your arms aren't as long, but you have a long wingspan, that means your shoulders are broad. We're doing a little bit of biology and anatomy in this video as well. You didn't know you was getting this from your boy, only on Necessary Blunt and Sports Talk. So make sure you're giving the video a thumbs up because we're really getting into the weeds on this one. This type of stuff makes me excited. I hope you're having fun. But Landon Jackson, a guy that very, very athletic testing. I think he's still growing. If you look at his high school football viral video of him going through all robotic and slapping and going through pads and what he is now, he's grown so much. I think he's still getting used to his body. He's a guy that I think has a ton of upside. I know I'm going on a little tangent about him, but he's a guy that checks their boxes. Beatty is the same as JT. He's more of a base run guy. 271 is a little bit heavy as well. Tyler Barron, he's coming off an injury. He checks some boxes as well. I think he's a base 4.3 in as well. Josh Joyner is a guy that I wouldn't be surprised to see them interested in. 262, 34-inch arms, only a 30-inch vert, but a 167 is a pretty good starting and explosiveness coming out of the blocks on that 10 yards. So I'm pretty good on that. And I'm not really familiar with Steve Linton's game. I'm not going to lie. So that last batch of guys are guys that, like I said, they haven't visited, but they fit the mold. So don't be surprised if you see their names pop up at some point as well. But again, 30 visits are huge. But who are my favorites out of these guys coming out? My favorite, and it seems to be the Panthers' favorite, is Princely Umanmielen. Now, Princely Umanmielen came out of Ole Miss. He started at Florida, transferred to Ole Miss, ended up having 10.5 sacks. This guy, again, checks all their boxes. Let's go back to the spreadsheet just so you can see. He checks all their boxes. He's 6'4", he's 244, 33 and 7/8 inch arms. He even measured in at over 34 at his pro day, 10.6 in the broad jump and 38-inch vert. So the lower body explosiveness is there. He has some of the best speed rushes in this class. And here are the strengths. Elite first step and stride length. When you have that first step, you're getting into the backfield quickly, and before the guys can even get out their stance good, you're putting pressure on them, and so they're already retreating. We've seen Ike Ekwonu have his troubles with speed. So if you're a tackle that has trouble with speed, Umanmielen is going to make you pay, and he has stride length as well. That way, he covers a lot of ground underrated wise. He's not really choppy when he does it. He covers a lot of ground when he gets in the backfield. His motor versus the run. He's not the best run defender. We'll talk about his weaknesses, but if he's chasing down something from the backside, he's willing to do that. If it's a running back trying to spring to the outside of him, he's going to run that down and do that. He has a good motor, and that couples with his elite first step and stride length. He also has that dip and bend to be able to get under guys' shoulder pads and do that ghost rush, get under guys and turn the corner tight and flatten out at the top of routes. This guy, he's just a pure speed guy. He's going to need to build up some of that, something else off of that. But if you can't stop the speed rush, he's going to give you fits, and he doesn't have a problem running that on you all day. Just check out that Georgia game where he dominated them with just pretty much speed and mixed it in with some power, spin moves as well. His weaknesses. He has average power. Now, I talked about having power to be able to collapse the pocket, and I think he has the explosiveness, but he'll need to be able to work on leverage, as in playing lower and also getting hands inside on tackles to be able to drive those feet and squeeze the pocket. That's something that can build up as he gets strength, get into that NFL program, maybe add another 5 to 10 pounds maybe to add some muscle there, that he'll be able to figure things out and get more power there. Now, aggressiveness against the run. He doesn't have a problem playing it. He'll make plays, but you can tell in his mind, he's not overly interested in doing it. So you need to be more aggressive, taking on blocks, getting off of blocks aggressively, being violent to shed blocks, and then making plays against the run. You see some plays where he's able to do that, but consistently on a down and down out basis, you can tell he doesn't really have a ton of interest in getting after the run. He likes to get after the passer. And then balance and footwork. Because he has those long strides, sometimes he can get knocked off his rocker, because if you get caught with one foot in the air, and because your stride is so long and lanky, you can get thrown off because you're getting caught mid-stride or your balance is not always there. But if you have those those choppy strides where you can change direction quick. Your feet are always on the ground. You're never going to get knocked off your rocker. So that's just the way he's built, though, and that's the way he is. So that's something that he can work on balance-wise, but he's always going to be a long stride type of guy. My next sleeper is Braden Swinson. Now, Braden Swinson is another guy who, let's go to the spreadsheet. He met with the Panthers as well. He checks a lot of their boxes, 6'3" and 5'8", 255, 33 and 3/8 inch arms. He didn't really do any lower body, explosion exercises to know that, but he had 9 sacks this year, had one of the highest pass rush win rates in the country. I think he was number 3 overall in pass rush win rate at 22.2. So he is a guy that can get after a speed rusher. I really, really like Braden Swinson's game. Very similar to Princely in terms of just that build. Now, Braden, his strength is his hand usage. Now, I talked about hand placement, fighting off blocks, swiping guys' hands away. That's his usage. He's able to shed blocks very, very well, get those off of him and keep those linemen's hands from getting on him by just being accurate with the placement of his hands and using those hands as he gets to the quarterback. His get off and close speed is good as well. Not an elite first step like Princely because of the stride length, but in terms of just getting off the ball quick, beating other guys out of their stance, he's great at that. And when he gets the quarterback in his sights, he's able to close very, very fast, and many quarterbacks don't get away from him. His change of direction is also his strength as well. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to run around the corner every time like Princely. He's a guy that's going to read and look at the quarterback. If he tries to step up in the pocket, he knows how to redirect and chase him around in that standpoint. So let's talk about the weaknesses, because the rush path is one I see on tape. And I'll say rush path is, there's an aiming point. Now, quarterbacks line up at about 5 yards in shotgun. They'll take their 2 or 3 step drop. They may end up being at 5, 6, 7 yards deep in the backfield. And as a rusher, you have to kind of see where you're going. You have to take the proper angle to get there. That way you meet him at where he's going to be when he takes his drop. And sometimes Braden just doesn't take the right angle. Like the quarterback may set up at 7 yards. He may run all the way to 8 and run by him. The quarterback may set up at 7. He runs and has an angle that has them end up at 5 yards, and the quarterback can just slide by at times. And it's just weird. So you can work on that. It's easily correctable with coaching. Just taking the proper angle and get off when you get out of your stance. His technique versus the run. Sometimes he ducks his head when guys are pulling to come and run the ball towards him. He'll duck his head. He'll lose vision there, and then that's just a no-no because the ball can easily go outside of you. You're not even looking. By the time you look up, you have to locate where everything is. So you can't be afraid to really stick your face in it at times. You know what I'm saying? And man up and stick your face in it sometimes if you know what I'm talking about. But against the run, it's definitely mandatory to be able to do that. So that's something that he'll need to be able to clean up, and he'll be able to do that. He shows physicality on tape. Obviously, he has the arm length to be able to do that as well. So coaching that can clean that up. And his play strength and his bulk, sometimes I guess it goes hand in hand with his rush path. He'll get washed down at times because of his strength and not being able to hold up at the point of attack. He can set the edge. He does it plenty of times on tape, but he'll need to be able to do that. If you look at his build, that midsection is a little bit thin. That's how I know when guys can carry more weight. If you're a little bit soft in the belly area and your waist ain't that slim, I may not want you to gain a little bit more weight because it's going to go there. But if you have this lean frame like he does, he has room to add more, and he's already 255. I would easily be able to see him getting up to 260, maybe even 262, and being a factor there. So 2 of my favorite guys, Princely and Braden Swinson. But again, we've seen all the Jalon Walker hype. I did not put him on here because I see him as a hybrid. I do not see him as a full-time edge like most guys do. I made my film breakdown video on Jalon Walker if you want to see that, where I talked about how his role can be in this defense, and we've seen it before, and how I envision them wanting to use Jalon Walker on this. And so being able to do that, and I expect them to double dip, if you call Jalon Walker an edge, and come back with another of these guys, because they've looked at other guys. I can see a Q Robinson being a guy that they come back with on day 3, or I can see a Princely or Braden being a guy that they do on day 2. So they end up going Jalon Walker and then an edge like Princely or an edge like Braden Swinson in the second round, just to kind of figure it out off the rip and get it out the way. Because yes, there are guys that may not be every down guys, like I kind of talked about their weaknesses, but if they're designated pass rushers, they come in on 2nd and long or 3rd and long, just because we know they can get after it. They're not designated edge setters. They're guys that are going to get after the quarterback. I'm fine with that because they can develop in those other parts of the game, and those weaknesses, they're not deal breakers for me. So I love doing these exercises like this, looking at some of the stuff that they're talking about, and we've got more information as we continue to dive deeper into the Dave Canales and Dan Morgan regime, we'll be able to collect more data and find more patterns like we did in this one. But make sure, again, you are subscribed to catch my other ones. We're going to do more deep dives like this, looking at the data of who they've met with and looking at some patterns. We're going to look at the offensive side of the ball a little bit more. We have interior D-line as well that we're going to look at. So I'm excited about this series as we lead up to the draft. So please subscribe. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.